episode of Between You and Me. For my YouTube video watchers / listeners, yes, I'm in my car. And I guess this is to my audio listeners too. I'm sitting in my car currently. I thought I'd mention that even though it's quite obvious if you guys are watching. I've been kind of unhappy with the quality of my video footage, so I thought I would take it outside. My studio lighting isn't hitting properly, so the natural sunlight will definitely have to do. I thought, I love sitting in my car regardless of any recording podcast footage, and it's a safe space for me. So that's why I thought it would be fun to do it in here for me. I also wanted to mention, a lot of you guys have been messaging me on Instagram and saying that you guys can't see the video footage on Spotify. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to put up video footage on Spotify because the distributor that I use for my podcast doesn't have that yet. So that's why I do it separately. Everything visual is going to be on YouTube, Between You and Me Pod on YouTube. So go subscribe to the channel and watch it there if you guys want to actually see me speaking. And if you're cool with audio, then let's stay here on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And yeah, that's all my little prefaces for today's episode. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's a nice gloomy day today. I went and got my driver's license renewed, which I don't know if this is good that I'm saying this online, but I didn't realize was expired for a while. I actually just didn't know that. So I got a new driver's license picture taken though, looking like this if you're looking at me now, which, I got ready a little this morning, so hopefully it turns out cute. But I've had the same one since I was 16, and I don't know, I feel like I just don't even look like that anymore. So I'm surprised people thought it was a real ID. But now hopefully it'll be a cute picture, because my 16-year-old picture was wicked, absolutely crazy. Not great. But anyways, I made a huge mistake about 15 minutes ago and started recording this whole entire beginning of the podcast and realized I never hit record on my podcast device. So that was really awkward. I was actually talking to myself and doing nothing for a while until I realized. So I seem to be making a lot of mistakes recently, because this morning I was going to record the podcast after I went and got my ID pictures taken for my driver's license, and I ended up forgetting my camera and all my podcast equipment at home, even though I put it in a bag and was ready to take it with me in the car so I could record an episode in the car as well. Didn't happen. So yeah, I've been making mistakes today, but it's okay. I'm still making it work, so that's the plus side of it all. And also, I know it's only been a couple minutes so far, but do comment down below if you guys are watching if you like the episodes in the car, because I do feel like just for quality purposes it looks better, and then it might be easier potentially when I have guests on, which is going to happen soon, don't worry, to be sitting side by side in the car potentially. I mean, I could still do that in my room, and I also did in fact change the layout of my room again. I don't know if any of you guys are aware that I've been doing this a lot lately, but I have, and I changed the layout of my bed. So now it gets natural lighting instead of being in front of natural lighting. So hopefully that will even improve it if I do record more in my room, which I probably will. Anyways, I think it's time to get into the topic of today's episode. And I'm sure a lot of you guys were reading the title and being like, what does she mean about how to embrace a boring life? And that's if I do title it that, which I think I will. But a lot of us consider the word boring, and I think actually maybe even the dictionary considers the word boring a negative word. It has a negative connotation to it. It's really, draining, lazy, mundane. That's what we relate the word boring to. But in my perspective, I have been kind of pondering on life a little bit more lately, and what it is exactly that I would like out of life, and how to reach a level of contentment with a simpler life, with, having to do more mundane activities, with not everything being a chase for something to make me happy. And I know we hear that piece of advice all the time. People always say, don't chase something to achieve happiness. Don't rely on something for happiness. That's the whole essence of detachment, which I made an episode on already if you guys want to listen to it. But there's like this level of us not even being aware that we're doing it to a certain extent. So I kind of want to get into and dissect what a boring life means and how we can live a quote unquote boring life but be very content with it. So I think starting off, I want to talk about like what we exactly would perceive as boring. And for myself, I think that simple things, little tasks, things like doing the dishes, doing the laundry, commuting to work, commuting anywhere, being in traffic, having to pay your bills, having to do tedious tasks for work, things like this would be considered boring. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, we consider travel, we consider going out with friends, playing any type of sport, watching sports, going to concerts, like things like this would be considered the opposite. They'd be considered exciting and fun. And if we live our whole lives creating such a black and white between the two things of boring and exciting, we're constantly going to be chasing excitement and we're constantly going to be dreading anything that's boring. So if we think about what we consider boring and why we consider it boring, I think it all comes down to something that I talk about a lot, and it's comparison. Unfortunately, this is a topic that seriously never gets old because it's something that we're faced with every single day, especially in our culture and in our generation. I'm not sure, but I think that the generation above us, our parents, didn't have to deal with as much comparison as us until maybe they matured and became parents themselves. But in their adolescence, in their early adulthood, I don't think there was as deep of a level of comparison as people in our generation experience today. And because of that, they've been able to lead somewhat of a more peaceful life when it comes to their inner critic and their inner dialogue in themselves and deciding on what path they want to take in life. I do think there was a different element of the quote unquote American dream when it comes to our parents and their generation, but we have our own sense of an American dream for this generation. And I don't even know, there's probably been people making studies on this now to this day, but I don't know if there's a word that's been created for it yet or what it could be. But to summarize it for you guys, I think our version of the American dream and what everybody wants is money, success, and in some cases, fame. And I think the reason, once again, that we want all these things is because of how deep set we are in comparison and how much social media shows us what we don't have, and then therefore we want it. I don't think any of us are ignorant to the fact that there is so much comparison that we see online, and I think I even talked about this in my last episode, but like there's this level of you see people looking so damn perfect online all the time, and it becomes so crippling to see, you know, your favorite influencer, your favorite celebrity, and then you see their beautiful house, their beautiful wardrobe, their perfect relationship, their wonderful kids, you know, things that we see online show us that money is equivalent to success, and that is equivalent to happiness and contentment. Now, this little equation that I just built up, the way people nowadays are choosing to achieve this is by what I like to call the grind mentality. And although I really don't like the word grind because it just feels a little strange, it really does encompass kind of what our generation has decided that we need to do to gain success and then therefore be happy. What I mean by the grind mentality, if it's not kind of like obvious, is that we sacrifice the simple pleasures, the good moments, and the happiness that we have in our lives now for future happiness. And it's all to work so hard on either a 9-to-5 job or scaling your career or being an entrepreneur or whatever it is, discovering something new and creating a new business and putting all 110% of yourself into your career, into a way that you can make money so that you can reap the benefits of that later on in your life. It sometimes gets to the point where I've heard people talk about not pursuing relationships, not pursuing hobbies, not pursuing time with their families, just so that they can make enough time to work and to make as much money as they possibly can. Everybody idealizes the grind mentality in a way where they just want to be able to find this level of success and then to not have to work again in their lives later on. So they want to get it all done now so they can really just revel in all their successes. And I do want to point out that I'm not saying all of this in a negative way towards the people that do have that mentality, because I do think that there is, everybody has a different path in their life. And if this is truly the way that you want to carry your life out and you've, set your goals up, your values align with it, and that's the way that you want to live your life, go for it. You don't need my permission, truly. Go for it. But the reason why I bring it up and want to talk about it is because I think that a lot of us follow the blueprint of it, and there's a lot of conformity with how we choose to go about our lives because of the comparison with people that we see having so much success, and we follow their blueprint on how to get the same success. I think this all comes from comparison, and we see people have these beautiful and exciting lives with so much money and so much happiness. We almost crave it just because we don't have that type of lifestyle or we don't have those things in our lives yet. So we make that our goal and we choose to go forward in that way in life, simply based on comparison. I wrote down the psychology behind wanting what you can't have, and it's known as the forbidden fruit effect. It's rooted in the concept of scarcity, which is the idea that things or experiences that are perceived as scarce or difficult to obtain are more valuable and desirable. So people who are extremely fortunate, have a lot of money, have great success, they're a dime a dozen, truly, because the average person is living in a more difficult situation, either in the middle class, lower middle class, or poverty. So we have a much larger population who are trying to attain this thing that very less amount of people have. So it makes sense why so many people want this, but it's also important to figure out for yourself if you truly want that. I think what made me genuinely sit back and think about, the element of a boring life, the element of things that are mundane, and also how I want to achieve happiness in life, it came on a random day, truly, probably a good couple months ago. And I think I even might have watched a video on it, which is funny, because normally you would see the opposite online. But very little people talk about having a simpler life. And I saw something that just said, why do we all think we need to chase this never-ending cycle of success and money and fame? I just want to live a simple life. That's what someone had written on one of their posts. And I was like, wow. It's almost, I could be alone in this, but I think it's almost as if I hadn't even thought about what I truly wanted out of life, but rather I followed what I thought everybody wanted out of life, which was success and a lot of money. And I do understand why so many people want this. I'm not ignorant to the fact that a lot of people aren't well off and they are struggling to get by. And I don't want to not acknowledge that aspect of it too, because there's such a fine line between living a peaceful, simple life and struggling to get by. And then the opposite side of the spectrum, which would be aiming for success and money and enough money to just, blow on anything. I don't know. It's a hard one to kind of encompass everybody's situation into, but specifically considering my situation and the way that I was thinking about life, I started to kind of backtrack on my mindset about why I have been aiming for this level of success in my life when I wanted to be more okay with a simple life. Like, I felt like, I just want it. I want to feel calm more often. I want less chaos in my life. I want to be happier with less things that I would need to attain, And I thought to myself, I was like, what sounds better? A life where I'm unhappy for the first half of it, where I need to work and slave away every single day. I need to sacrifice all the things that I love in my life just to have success and a lot of it at the end of it? Or do I want consistency in my life and simplicity and a lot of gratitude for the smallest things that I have? And which one sounded better to me? And when you think about it in that way, the thought of having a simpler life, in my opinion, sounds a lot sweeter. I think living a simple life is the answer to a lot of people's questions on how to be content in your day-to-day life. So much of our suffering comes from us wanting things that we don't have and then failing to get it. The only reason we want things we don't have is because we see other people have it. We want things like success, money, and luxury because we see people have those things and they look very happy. So now we want to be happy, and the solution seems simple. But if you truly, really want that simple and happy and peaceful life, it's not about all that I mentioned. It's not just about success. It's not just about money. It's not just about chasing that stature in your life. There's so much less actually to it. If you guys are in the same boat as me and you're kind of thinking about what you want out of life and all these different questions and like, how badly do you really need that much money? How badly do you really need to be working to your wits every single day? Just so that you can afford that certain thing that you want, I think it's hard to remember sometimes for a lot of us that life isn't a race and that we need to sit back and reflect on what we want out of life, where we're headed, and also what our end goal is. Do you want contentment? Do you want fulfillment? Do you want peace in your life? Or do you just want to attain something? And I think a lot of us don't realize that if we want to attain something, then that's going to come with the consequences of when you get that thing, you're just going to want something else. When we put the result of happiness in getting something, a person, a place, a thing, a situation, a job, blah, 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 a relationship, a new level of life, then we get that and we have a temporary happiness, but we don't actually have a long-term fulfillment. So where I'm getting at with all of this is that there is a level of us going towards a simpler life and being able to feel contentment within a simpler life. And with that, you're still able to create goals for yourself, work hard, have passions, drive your life in different directions, but you're not having your whole success and future money dependent on a certain goal. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that properly. It's like you're not reliant on someone to have this happiness, but rather you're just very simply content with a smaller life. And if a bigger life comes out of it, then that's your choice to take. You know what I mean? But you're not only dead set on this huge, exciting, thrill-full, expensive, and luxurious life. I think if you're in the same boat as me and you might be reflecting on these things in your life and kind of questioning, like, what direction do I want to go in? Do I really want this huge life, or am I kind of craving more of a simpler and more peaceful life within myself? I think if you start to crave more experiences, less things, if you start to simply enjoy just being, and if you're tired of living in this like constant chaos and constant like almost like a fight or flight mode all the time, like always needing the next thing, then your answer truly is to lead a simpler life. Once again, I don't think a simpler life means being content with a bare minimum. I just want to point that out. I also don't think that a simple life means struggling to live that certain life. I think being content with the position that you're in doesn't come from what you have. It comes from inside of you. No matter what, level of life you're in when it comes to, how much money or how much success you have in your life, we're all going to run into issues. We're all going to run into problems, and that could be related to money or not. And the situation at hand is, if you feel this level of contentment and this happiness inside of you when it comes to your place in life and your end goal in life, it will make everything else in your life a lot simpler and a lot happier. There's a person doing a reverse parking right next to me. I don't think they realize I'm in the car. It's a driving school person. I'm in a parking lot in a park and someone's doing probably a driving lesson, trying to parallel park or reverse park or something. Anyways, let's get into how to live a simpler life, okay? Because a lot of this might have sounded really confusing, and honestly, I feel like I spoke a little confusingly in this, so my apologies for that. But if we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it and how to live the simple life, how to have this contentment and this happiness in your life, then we're about to get into that. I think you need to practice contentment. It's not something that comes to you, or else I would be so content right now because I've already thought about this and want it. But leading a simpler life really comes from practicing contentment. And my steps that I have put together to have a simpler life starts off with prioritizing experiences over material possessions. When I say experiences, this doesn't mean traveling to a tropical island or going to Paris or, whatever these big luxurious experiences are. It means even the smallest experiences. It means going to get ice cream with one of your friends. It means going on a walk down the street or in the neighborhood with your mom. It means taking your dog out to the park. These are all experiences that some might consider boring. Some of us might look at and be like, oh, that's what you did today? You just walked your dog in the park? But if you start prioritizing these experiences in your life and looking forward to them and making them feel exciting to you, then that's your first step. Adding to that also, we are stuck in a bubble of consumerism, and this is a whole nother subject. But honestly, I'm a victim to it to a certain extent as well. I'm not terrible though. I'm really my sisters are a lot worse than me. But as girls, I know we all have the shopping bug, and we see a girl have something and we immediately want it. When I say prioritize experiences, it means don't think about what you need for that experience to look perfect for you. If you want to start going to the gym, for example, and you think that would help enhance your life, you don't need to buy 15 different gym sets to match that perfect aesthetic to go to the gym. I'm trying to make these very relatable to the people in our generation. So to me, it's prioritize how you feel in those moments, the way the experiences make you feel, and how you have gratitude for these things rather than you looking a certain way based on everyone else to fit in with that genre. that you're exploring in your experience, Another piece of advice is to take time to just be and to live in the present moment. And mindfulness is the key to living in the present moment. And I talk about mindfulness a lot, but the present moment is the only thing that is true. It's the only thing that's real. It's the only thing that's currently happening right now in this moment. When you tune yourself into the present moment, you tune out everything else. I think a lot of us struggle because we're thinking about the past or the future. And practicing mindfulness will tune out everything else and allow you to tune in with yourself, allow you to tune in with the current moment, and allow you to feel a lot more peace because you aren't filled with the chaos of everything else, right? So ways that you can be more mindful are starting each day with a mindfulness meditation. I try my best as often as possible to do meditations in the morning, and I think starting off the day with them is really good. Sometimes I am very anxious. Like, for example, today and for the past couple of days, I've been waking up very anxious, and there isn't much of a reason. I think it's hormonal, to be honest. I did a meditation this morning. I took some deep breaths. I was also extremely present in the actions that I was doing in the morning. I was getting ready. I was brushing my teeth. I was starting my day. And instead of distracting myself, I was focusing in on each and everything that I was doing. And that's how you become mindful of things, right? Things like mindful eating. In the same way I was saying I did a mindful morning routine, mindfully eating, being conscious of what you're eating. Mindful eating is good because you're using a lot of your senses. You're smelling, you're eating, you're seeing, something you can touch too. I don't know if you have a slice of pizza. So the things that are using more of your senses allow you to be more present. And then you can also take mindful walks. You can focus on the sensations of walking and the environment around you. I love mindful walking, and I also love walking and talking. But sometimes that's not that mindful. Sometimes that's just yapping. But I love looking around, being so observant of the things that are going on around you instead of being in your head, right? And then taking short mindfulness breaks throughout the day. I do this sometimes. Sometimes whenever I think of it, I'll do it. I'll take 5 or 10 very deep breaths and be very conscious in that moment, because we live our lives for the most part not being extremely mindful. So when we start to incorporate these mindfulness practices into our lives, then we start to be more mindful, right? Now, other things to have a simpler life is to set aside certain times of your day to unplug from social media. I just talked about this in my last episode, but it's really valuable to, 1, not waste time on social media, 2, not have more of a chance to compare yourself to other things on social media, and 3, to live in the present moment. Also, I think practicing yoga and any other form of exercise will encourage you to be more aware of your body and allow you to be more mindful and live in the present. Keeping a gratitude journal will also help you cultivate a lot of happiness, because you are pointing out these things that no matter how small they are, you are very happy for them. I just did a gratitude list of 5 things this morning. Sometimes I repeat myself. Sometimes I write the same thing every day, but it just reminds me that I am grateful for them and that I shouldn't forget that I have a lot of blessings in life. Even when you might not think you have blessings, it can be as simple as the fact that I have 2 legs. I can see, I can smell, I can hear. Trust me, if we didn't have these things, our lives would be very different. And I know the people that might experience these things would agree. So showing gratitude for even things that you might not even think of are truly what's most important, right? Another way to achieve a simpler life is to reduce the amount of chaos in your life and declutter, organize your space, get rid of things. A simple life doesn't necessarily mean a minimalistic life, by the way, but if if that's the way that you want to carry out a simpler life, get rid of things if you'd like. You don't need to hold on to every gadget that you have. You can sell things. If you don't use something, get rid of it. You might not even need it, but you've just been staring at it and you think it's cool, so you keep it. But things like that, declutter, get rid of things in your space, make it an easier place to be in, less chaos and, clutter. Your environment reflects a lot of your inner peace and inner world as well. Focus on what truly matters to you too, in order to have a simple life, and Let go of these unnecessary commitments that you might have made for yourself. I think, like I said, going back to what I said at the beginning, like we put so much on our plate with this grind mentality and work so hard. And if you can get by with doing less, then do less. Take the time that you would have been working on something crazy and spending hours and hours a day perfecting it, and instead be content with what you've made, what you've worked on, and put time into other things. Put time into hobbies, put time into family, friends, relationships. Like actually be super present in the other things in your life rather than seeing them as like a side thing and focusing most of your attention on this element of where you can find success. Adding to that, if you simplify your goals and focus on what provides you actual contentment and fulfillment, kind of like what I just said, you'll be able to kind of knock out things that you don't actually really need to do and feel so much more joy in your day-to-day life. Like I know a lot of us wake up in the morning, we're like, shit, I have so much crap to do today. Like I literally have so much work. And if you're able to kind of sift through everything and kind of scratch out certain things that are really not that necessary. Like for example, some days I'll put on my to-do list, like research, blah, 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 blah. Just because like I want to know something more to like help elevate me in this area. And I don't know, this is not a bad thing per se, but if I'm spending all day working and then I spend the rest of my evening doing research on more work, where has my day gone? Where has the fulfillment and the contentment and the happiness and things coming from other sources in my life gone? You know, like I am just focusing on one thing that whole entire day. And also, mind you, a simple life will help you not have as much burnout. Okay, last but not least, I'm repeating myself again. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Be happy with your life. Appreciate what you have. Don't feel like just because everybody wants to be famous or everybody wants to be on social media or everybody wants to have this much money so they can buy a mansion, that doesn't mean you need it too. If you want it, beautiful. If you don't, so what? You can have your version of life and be content with it. You don't need to look like everybody else's. If you still think that money and fame and whatever it might be is going to allow you to have contentment and you do it in your own way that brings peace to you, then I'm so sorry this podcast was not for you. But there are people like that out there. But on the other side of the spectrum, if that's so much for you, if that's too much to handle and you haven't been feeling happy and content in the way you've been living, a simpler life is for you. Being okay with, you know, not having so much money, not having the best clothes in the world, not having the most expensive jewelry, the best handbags in the world, like just being okay with what you have. Contentment, baby. A simple life is okay. A boring life is okay. All right, guys, I hope this made sense. I feel like I kind of like bounced around a lot. Sometimes like my podcast episodes feel really good and sometimes they feel kind of messy. And this one felt a little messy, but I hope you guys kind of like got what I was trying to say and like it all made sense, because it's kind of like the first time that I've ever even like spoken these thoughts out loud. So I think that's why it might have been a little confusing. But if you guys agree, comment down below. If you disagree, comment down below. If you have any other, you know, subjects and topics you want me to talk about in future episodes, comment that down below as well, or DM me at Between You and Me podcast on Instagram. And yeah, that's about it. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode today, and I shall speak to you next week.